Hello, friends. Welcome back. My name is Carly, and this is Owning Authenticity. So, this is Truth Telling Part 2 as we are revealing the Owning Authenticity model, aka the root system underneath how do you own your authenticity. What does that really mean? It's super easy to say, just be yourself, but how do you actually do that? Okay. And we've already gone through truth telling as its own element as far as building up your truth telling muscle to where being honest and telling your truth is your dominant way of being in all situations, with all people, under all conditions. Okay. So talk about something that builds up over time. And these two feeder components are going to dive a little bit deeper into how exactly we do that and what is maybe the initial stage look like, and how does it get even grander as we build those muscles and grow in our truth-telling capabilities. So we're going to start with the feeder component on the right with taking up time and space. Okay. And this right here, you can think about the social conditioning of children are seen and not heard. Okay. If you ever heard that as a child, or even saw it on TV, or however it sank into your consciousness that children are seen and not heard, that is extremely toxic as far as children who are taught that grow up to be adults who have a blocked throat chakra, who have a blocked truth-telling muscle. Okay, if we don't practice it when we're kids, then when we get to be adults, we're starting from square one, and maybe not even square one because we're at square -10 because we've been taught that we shouldn't say anything. Okay, so taking up time and space, learning that what you have to say is valuable, that it matters, that it deserves to be heard. This is the what is blocking our truth telling, is that we don't actually believe that we get to take up time and space. And this is where I'm going to add on to my story of my year of speaking truth, 2021, when I, initially gave myself full permission to be as honest as I possibly could be with all people, in all situations, under all conditions. You get to speak your truth. And I immediately hit a wall of I don't even know what my truth is. So you got to go back to self-awareness and get to know yourself on an even deeper level. And then you have truth to tell. But this whole taking up time and space thing, notice taking up time and space, that doesn't necessarily have to be somebody else's time and space. Okay. And in fact, I go through this in real depth in my ebook, The 5 Stages of Telling a Hard Truth, where it's even better if it's not somebody else's time and space. Okay. Especially when you're trying to birth and trying to speak a brand new truth, best that you take up your own time and space. Okay, so before we ever get to the part where we're speaking truth to somebody else, say it out loud to yourself. And that's again where, when I gave myself full permission, I still couldn't do it. You can practice speaking truth and get really, really, really good at it in a room all by yourself. Maybe you're recording it, maybe you're not. And for me, recording it was the path. I started my very first podcast at the very end of February 2021. So this was on the heels of those first few experiences of having permission to tell my truth and not being able to. And so that podcast journey through 2021, that was really removing the block, dissolving the block one little bit at a time out of my throat chakra so that I could even speak, so that I could even get on a roll and say things. Okay. And those episodes, in the early days, they were rarely listened to. Some of them would get 4 views, 2 views, no views. It was not about that. It was about, am I allowing myself to talk about this? Am I allowing myself to tell this story? Do I even know the story? well enough to tell it out loud. And like, it's amazing how we think we know things when we keep them inside our heads. And then when you have to explain it out loud, you start to see all the holes in your logic. You start to see all the holes in your memory. You start to see how potentially you're even rewriting part of the story based on what your trigger believes is true versus what actually happened. Like, saying your truth out loud through your throat chakra is transformative. Again, even if you're sitting in an empty room all by yourself. And the only one who's listening, the only one whose time and space you're taking up is your own. So being willing to take up time and space is absolutely the first feeder component into truth telling. And again, in that ebook where I go through the 5 stages of truth telling, number 1 is even uncovering what the truth is. Okay? Because like, that's a step all by itself. Is I don't even know what my truth is, okay? And then you become aware of it, and then you need a safe space. So that's where, like, if you can say it out loud to yourself, then you're ready to go and take up somebody else's time and space, all right? And at that point, potentially, it will be somebody that you have hired to hold space for you, like a coach or a therapist or a healer of some kind. And that it's easier to take up their time and space if you are reciprocating either with money or a trade of energy in some way. Again, feeling like it's safe to take up that other person's time and space. This is such a huge element of truth telling. And like, if you feel like you can't tell your truth, like, do you know what it is? And do you feel comfortable taking up people's time and space? After about 6 months of my podcasting journey, that is when I launched my YouTube channel, Owning Authenticity. And one of the biggest blocks that I found in my year of truth telling is that who would want to listen to me? Like, do I really deserve their time? Am I really going to take up their time to like make this 60-minute video? And that was so alive inside of me. And it was like a fist wrapped around my throat chakra that like the only way to get it to loosen was to practice taking up my own time and space. And eventually I started recording that and putting it on the channel. And again, in the early days of Owning Authenticity, this video got 3 views and this one got 6 views and like, oh, and this was 8. Oh my gosh, like that's so many. And so allowing ourselves to take up time and space. The other feeder component is visibility. Is like, you know, you see how far we've gone into the truth-telling conversation and we still aren't even visible to another person. All right. And like that being visible, letting yourself be seen by another person, that is its own special component of this truth-telling equation, because taking up time and space, like again, that can be your own. And visibility, same. You could become visible to yourself. You could open up a Zoom meeting, which I think Zoom is free if like you're just on an individual plan and you can get like a 40-minute meeting for free with one other person kind of thing. Like you can look into that if you want, but like as an easy way to record yourself and becoming visible to yourself. Before you're putting yourself on full display for everybody else, you practice looking at you. You practice telling yourself your truth and then you receiving and listening to your truth. Again, this was a huge step for me. Like when I switched from podcasting voice only to videos, becoming visible to myself was another huge fist around my throat chakra that like it was definitely the first step to even relax my voice enough to speak when I wasn't being looked at. And then once I started making videos, it was like reorienting my throat chakra all over again, like getting my voice in rhythm and flow all over again while I'm also being seen. So like all of this feeding into being a truth teller. It is not something to take lightly. And again, if you are somebody who can raise your hand and say, in most situations, with most people, under most conditions, I am my honest self, please give yourself like the biggest pat on the back because, dude, those muscles are fucking sexy. Okay? Like, being a truth teller is a skill that a lot of people in our modern society do not possess. So if you are someone who is able to be abundantly honest about your own self and your truth and your perspective and all of these things, like, that is so impressive and valuable. And can it be strengthened? Always. Just like self-awareness continuously expands, it's like every time your self expands, a new level of your own personal truth comes online. So is it possible to be fully honest and fully authentic and fully yourself? Maybe, but then you expand and there's a whole nother version of you that's right there ready to be taken on as a newbie, right? Like newbie mode with the expanded version of you. And like all of that to say, I just recorded a heart-to-heart with someone this morning, and for the first time in a while, got to experience a vulnerability hangover. Okay, when I started my podcast back in early 2021, the first episode was called Go For It. The second episode was called Hell Yes Energy, and that tells you a little bit about like the hell yes energy that I was in at the time. The third episode was called Vulnerability Hangover because I was like, what the fuck have I done? Oh my God. Like, it was like just everything inside of me wanted to shrink and crawl under a rock and hide and like never come out again. And now that I've been making videos for a few years and like been doing this for a while, like it takes a lot. It takes a deep level of truth telling to get me to a vulnerability hangover, and I had one today. And so, dude, at this point, I take it as a sign of like, number one, I've expanded. That's why I'm able to tell a deeper version of my truth. And I know that I did that because I had a vulnerability hangover. So anybody who tells you vulnerability is weakness and like once you expand and once you're strong, then you won't have a vulnerability. Like, dude, like not having a vulnerability hangover ever again just means you're done expanding. Just means you're not going to grow anymore. And like, you might want that. I definitely don't want that. So I love my vulnerability hangovers. I love when they pop up to let me know like, awesome job deepening even further into your authentic being. So if you've had a vulnerability hangover recently, tell me about it in the comments. Tell me like, when was it? Where was it? Like, how did you handle it? Did you love yourself through it? I hope you did. It's totally normal if you didn't, if you beat up on yourself for like the vulnerability hangover, or like often if the vulnerability hangover is really bad, we try to snatch back what we did. Right? Like I made podcast episodes and now I have a vulnerability hangover and like, let me take those down. I made a Facebook post that gave me vulnerability hangover. Let me delete it. And like, I'm begging you with every ounce of strength you have, leave the thing out there. Turn inward with the vulnerability hangover and find the part of you that's scared. The inner child who was taught they're not allowed to take up time and space. The part of you that was taught that like such and such is wrong or weird or whatever. And like, that's the area you went into and now you've got a vulnerability hangover. It's a sign of expansion. And every time we expand, our job is to make it safe where we've expanded to. So I hope this has been helpful, this truth telling part 2. If it has been even just a little bit, leave a like on the video. That's so helpful for growing my channel and pulling more people into this community where we are owning our authenticity. That is such a world-changing thing. World-changing in the sense that one person at a time is owning their authenticity, is living more fully from who they really are. That is a tidal wave that is growing on the planet, and I thank you so much for being a part of it. The other way you can support my work and receive value for yourself is to hop on my mailing list by going to owningauthenticity.com/email list and receive your invitation for the free events that I host, any other stories or goodies that I send through there. I send out free gifts sometimes, like all kinds of fun stuff that I think will support you on your journey of being who you were born to be. This is my pleasure. This is my work. This is my joy. This is my fun. I freaking love it here, and I'm so glad that you're here too. Until next time, I hope you'll take such good care of your beautiful, authentic self, and so will I.